Welcome to Chiltern Teaching School Hub Recently Qualified Teacher Programme. Today we are really excited to have Colin Moore joining us. So I'll leave you in his capable hands.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. This session is about inspiring writing. I did plan in some interactive bits during the session, but we'll see, fingers crossed, some more people join us during the session. Then we'll get some of that done. If not, I'll give you a whole whistle-stop tour of it. So just a bit about me, first of all. I don't know why I put a picture there because you can see me anyway on the screen. So I'm a deputy head teacher at Whitefield Primary Academy in Luton. We're part of the Chiltern Learning Trust, which is a trust of 3 schools. I'm an experienced teacher, taught all the way across the primary phase. My degree is actually specialising in early years education. I'm an SLE in English, NPQH, NPQSL, facilitator for ECTs and for mentors for the new early career framework. And I have to put it on there because it's very important at the moment to me. I'm also a huge Liverpool fan, which is a very exciting times at the moment. So that is probably the most important bullet point on there at the moment. So hopefully in this session, we're going to consider the purpose of writing. So why do we write in school? I'm going to try and give you some practical ideas and some games you can use in your classroom. You can take away and start planning in times to use them. Give you a chance to reflect on writers in your class. Obviously, if the session there's not more people coming in, I'll give you that. You can do that after the session, not rather than during the session. We have a little touch on grammar and the importance of teaching grammar for writing, so grammar for a purpose, so grammar in context. Also, as well, look at vocabulary, the vocabulary gap. I'm going to reference some reading in this session as well, make some recommendations of where you might want to go after the session to further enhance and build on your knowledge. And obviously, we're going to talk about text-rich classrooms and how we can do that to the best of our ability. Okay. So the first one there, this was going to be a quick discussion point. Obviously, we won't do that. But just want you to consider, to start with, why do we write? That's a really important question to ask ourselves as teachers. Why do we ask the children to write? What is their purpose for writing? Because the purpose is a real driving point in terms of inspiring writing in the first place. So just consider that question. Why do we write in class? Why do we ask the children to write? Why do we write as adults? That's an important question to ponder on before planning the unit. Always think about the purpose for the end, that final piece, the independent piece. What is the point of it? Why are the children doing it? Okay. At this point, we was going to head into a breakout, but we won't. So obviously, just consider as well now, make some notes to yourself. What does writing do for your children? What does it do to your children? Does it enable them to do anything different compared to other subjects? And have just a moment of reflection as well. What are their attitudes towards it? Is it a positive attitude all around in the class? Do you have kind of a mixed bag? Some more children are difficult to inspire than others. Just have a moment there to think about your class and their attitudes towards writing in the English lessons, but also across the curriculum as well. Okay, so to give you a moment to reflect on that before we move forward. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of run through from my experience and from my reading and my training, different stimuli and experiences you might want to consider in your classroom. Some of these I'm sure you do already. Some of them I'm sure you've seen done already. So there's nothing really new here, but hopefully it might jog some bits in your mind. So first thing that's great to use is drama. All right, so drama, you can bring it to life. That gives children real life experiences then to write about. Talk is huge. Often if children can't say something, they won't be able to write it. So that use of talk partners in your classrooms, group work, talk is such an amazing tool to enable children to write. Your classroom environment. What does your classroom environment say about your children as writers? I've just started teaching a year 5 class for this half term. At the start of the unit, I said to them, how many of you in here are writers? One child put their hand up out of my class of 30. So it's trying to explain to them, you're all writers, you all write in different ways, you all have different strengths, but you are all writers. So I had to look at my classroom environment. What does it say about our class as writers? Am I celebrating their work? Is there enough in the classroom to inspire their writing? Is their writing going up on display? Is it going home to parents? Am I sharing it enough? So your classroom environment, what does it say about your class as writers? If you haven't used this website, it's fantastic, Literacy Shed. So many bits on there to inspire writing. So we have done units using videos from the Literacy Shed, and it's great for standalone pieces of work, but it's also great for units of work. And it gives you ideas on Literacy Shed of how you can use the resources there to really stimulate writing. So if you haven't used that before, use it. If you have used it, sorry, then get back into it. Look at the different examples on there. They're always adding bits and pieces to it. Literacy Shed is an amazing resource. Okay, extracts as well. So extracts from books, openings to books, picking out key pieces, certain pages from books. These can very quickly act as stimuli to get some excellent writing out of the children. Again, that could be for standalone lessons, but it could also be for whole units of work. We use extracts here quite a lot. We're a talk for writing school, so we use extracts for children to act as comparison. So they can look at, how does J.K. Rowling do this? How does Michael Morpurgo do this? And they can get these excellent authors and be inspired by the authors, and then that can inspire the children's writing there. Obviously books, I just mentioned extra, we're using books, your class readers, being a book-based curriculum. But graphic novels are also fantastic, and picture books. Picture books are brilliant. So books like The Arrival, The Viewer, picture books are an incredible resource to use, and is really accessible for everybody. So yeah, get stuck into those as well. For the older children, a lot we use current affairs to inspire writing. So what is happening at the moment that we could access, get some independent writing out of the children. So your wow, so real experiences and hooks, maybe at the start of the unit, what could be a wow starter for the unit? What can we do in there? Make come to life for the children so then they can write about it. So things we've done before, we kind of, one time we trashed our classroom completely. And we said to the children, so-and-so's come in here, they trashed the classroom, what could have happened? And they write about that. Things like aliens landing, so many bits you could do, there's so many bits out there. So those real experiences at the start of the unit to inspire writing. We've done The Giant's Necklace by Michael Morpurgo, where the young girl Cherry is having to collect cowrie shells. So a lot of our children in Luton here in this school had gone out collecting shells on the beach. So we hid shells around the school, around the outside. They collected cowrie shells and they made the Giant's Necklace as well, which really enabled them to understand the text, which enabled them to write to a higher level, because it became real. It became real and they could hook their learning onto those experiences, which is great. Trips, goes without saying, fantastic experiences for children. And often we use trips to stimulate writing. So it's always had a purpose. So when we go on this trip, what can we learn from there to go into our writing? I spoke about that as well, and go with the children's interests as much as we can. What would they like to write about? Role play areas for the younger children are also a fantastic resource. So really there is about being creative. Yeah, you're planning with your year group members, speak to experienced colleagues, be creative, think outside the box, because that can really stimulate the writing. So what I'm going to do now is talk about Popple 365. You do have to sign up now for this and have an account. A few years ago you didn't have to, but you do now. But on here there's amazing images to use for children to look at. There's reading comprehension links to it as well. But the account is free. You haven't got to pay for it at all. It's great for morning challenges. It's great to use in English. Some of the images are just fantastic. And it gets children to think outside the box and makes them desperate to write about it. So if you haven't used that before, you might want to note that down as a great resource, a free resource as well. So these are the Jumpstart books. These are written by Pi Corbett, who he brought together Talk for Writing. These books are fantastic little resources. You can get them off Amazon, they're about £5, £6, and they're great starter activities for your English lessons. And obviously, depending on what you want to achieve, will depend which one you want to go into. The grammar book is fantastic because the grammar book talks about grammar for writing and what you can do in terms of starter activities to get grammar into their writing there. The story making is great. I did plan on playing a few games with everybody here, but we're not enough people to do that. So I'll just run through the games so you get to have a little sample of those. So the story making activity is great. You've got literacy, but if you haven't used these books before, I would recommend them. They're for £5-6. They're a great resource, and you can really tailor them to what you're trying to help the children to learn. Okay, so you might make a note of that. These books, I mean, they're great books. So we've actually got another person joining, so we might be able to play this game if we've got willing participants. So this game is from one of the books. The game is called Fortunately and Unfortunately, and it's a great oral starter, an oral game to play with the children. So all I need for this is two people just to unmute themselves, and we'll have a go at playing the game really quickly. It's a really simple game. Okay, all right. So we've got.
I can join you too, Colin.
Cheryl's going to join in as well. Brilliant. It won't take too long. So this game is called Fortunately, Unfortunately. Now, Cheryl, I'm going to ask you, every sentence that you say starts with the word fortunately. And Selena, every sentence you are going to say starts with the word unfortunately. And we're going to build a story. So I'll give you a main clause, a simple sentence to start us off. So it could be, the boy went to the park. The boy went to the park. And then Cheryl will come in with a sentence saying, fortunately, what happened?
So shall I carry on?
Yeah, so the boy went to the park. Over to you.
Fortunately, his friends were there when he got there.
Brilliant. And then Selena will do unfortunately.
He was too scared, so he stayed on the floor.
And then it bounces back to Cheryl. It bounces between you. It bounces between you as you go through the game.
Fortunately, he found that he had some sweets in his pocket.
Unfortunately, the wrappers were off, and so ants had got into them.
Oh no.
Fortunately, there was a bin nearby, so he could just pop them in.
Unfortunately, the bees smelt the honey and chased him towards the bin.
Okay, so you get the point. That's a good game to play. So you can model that in front of the class, but then I'd move them into talk partners and get them all to play along to it. The stories you get will be completely random, but it's good fun. It's great fun. And you can actually turn it into stories as well after you've used that game. So children love playing that game. So the next one is a word choice game. Do you know what? I'm going to make you play this one as well. So if everybody can unmute it, that would be fantastic. So the word choice game is I will give you a topic. So let's say food, type of food, but I'm going to say your food cannot contain a certain letter. So I might say to you, your food cannot contain the letter A. So that would rule out pizza, for example. But I'm going to make it a bit harder for you. So your food, I'll write this down so I can track this. Your food cannot contain the letter A or the letter S. All right. So this game gets children to think really carefully about the word choices they are making, which could transfer over to things like setting descriptions or show not tell, or using dialogue effectively, or building suspense or writing great openings. So this is a great game you can transfer to anything really. So let's have a go. So what I'll do, I'll start with Cheryl, then Selena, then Claire. So it just goes around like that. I'll play as well. I'll try. I'm not very good at this game. So Cheryl, if you start us off, a food that doesn't contain a letter A or S.
Cucumber.
Cucumber. Well done. Selena?
Rice.
Claire?
Hot dog.
Hot dog, good. I'm going to go for chicken.
Lettuce.
Ooh, we'll have that.
them out. Oh.
I'm going to time you out, Selena. I'm going to time you out there.
All right.
Claire?
Beef?
Beef. I've just written that down. I want to go for burger. Beef burger, that works.
Egg.
Egg. Oh, good.
Fish. Can I have fish?
Yeah. Well, no, you can't have fish. It's got an S
What
in
did
it.
you say? Oh, no, S.
Oh.
There. Oh, I'm really out now, aren't I?
Oh, there you go. Right, I'll stop the game there. But you get the point. Good game to play with your class. It gets them thinking about the words they're using and activates their brain to think, right, which words should I use? And actually, words are important. The choice of words are really important, have an impact on the reader. So every word I select, I need to choose carefully. So that's a great little starter to use. And your children will love it. They'll love the competitive side to it. Comes a little game of tennis. And you can make it harder, you can make it easier. Obviously, harder, put more letters in for them to avoid. Easier, use consonants rather than vowels. But yeah, it's a good little game, and that's from one of Pi Corbett's books as well. Okay, so I'm going to flick back. These books are great. I use these all the time to help me with my lessons in English. Okay, speed writing. We won't do this one, but I'll just explain what it is. Again, it's from the book. So speed writing is an activity where I might give the children a topic, I might give the children an image, I might give the children a quick video, and they're trying to write as much as they can in a set amount of time. It might be a minute, it might be 2 minutes. It just gets them writing. So the key here is, even if they get a block, they think quickly and get back to writing again. It gets them in the mood for what's to come up. So that's a really good activity to try. Video writing as well. Show the children a video. You can have the sound on, sound off, and get them to write what they see. Maybe it's a story they see, maybe it's a newspaper report they see. It depends on the level of children you're working with, but that's another good one, again, from that book. Make the most of using children using other children, so collaborative writing is a great thing to do. Write together, make it a real enjoyable experience for the children. So, I've kind of referenced talk earlier, so I'm not going to go over too much. But things like hot seating is a great activity to bring a text to life. So if you don't know what hot seating is, I'll quickly go through. It's a bit like a press conference sort of setup. So you have a child might take on a role as a character. They'll sit in front of the class, and other children get to ask that character questions. So we've done one this week for the ancient Greeks. We've had children being King Polydectes. We've had children being Perseus, children being Medusa. Which was fun because we couldn't look at them, so we didn't get turned to stone. And they get to ask that character questions. And those questions build the children's knowledge of the character and enables them to write more effectively, and they're more excited to write as well. Conscience Alley is something you might have heard of before, you might have used it. So you have your class in half, one side this side, one side the other, and they're facing inwards. So it makes like an alleyway with a little space down the middle. And you ask one of your children to move through the middle of the conscience alley. So for example, if I was King Polydectes or Perseus in that example, they're going to walk through the alley, and the other children might ask them questions. The other children might give them advice based on what's happened in the story. You can quickly turn that talk into writing, which is a great thing to do. So conscience alley is something you might want to make a note of to help your writing. We mentioned role play and freeze frames as well. Sending the children off to freeze frame certain points of a story or certain points of an extract is a really powerful thing to do. Okay, and this will help them to internalize all of these things. All of this talk helps children to internalize sentence structures. At this point, we're going to have a breakout, but I'm just going to ask you to reflect on these questions. So I want you to just spend a bit of time to think about the writers in your classroom. Think about what we've spoken about so far. What does motivate your children to write? Are some children in your class not motivated by the writing? Why is that? Is there a reason for it? Is it actually, as teachers, is it our fault? The reason why they're not motivated to write? Is there a purpose to it? If somebody walks into your classroom, would they see passionate writers? If so, brilliant. What do you do that makes them passionate? If not, what is preventing that? Is there a block there? Consider from this year, what units have been really successful? So after the session, when you go away today, that's a really important thing to think about. Why has that been so successful? Was it that there was a book behind it? There's a book, there's a real book, I've read this book, and that was the driving force behind the unit. Or actually, was it that you gave them a fantastic purpose for the end? At the end, this is what I'm going to do with your writing. This is where this is going. I'm going to publish your writing. We're going to write to this person. This is what we're going to do. We're going to have an open session where parents come in. We're going to be in the hall. We're going to show this off. We're going to go to younger children and show them the writing. We're going to go up to year 6 and show them the writing. So always consider, what's the purpose? When you've had successful units, why has it been successful? If you experience a unit where it hasn't been as successful and children haven't been as passionate about the writing, maybe think about why that is. What was the driving force behind the unit? Okay. So there's another question to consider. It works much better, obviously, in a bigger session, but who influences a child's writing? So think about the children in your class. As teachers, we have a massive influence over our children's writing in the class. They want to write for you. They want to write for you. They want to please you. They want to show you what they can do. Think about other influences on a child's writing, maybe a parent's influence. And that might be a positive parental influence, or it might be a negative influence. So children you might have who haven't got that positive attitude to writing, is that something that we can change in school, and how can we change it? Is it something they get from home? Maybe there's a negative attitude towards writing in general at home. We have some children in this school whose parents are unable to read and write, so we do workshops with them to support them as well. So just think about the influences on the child's writing. All right, so I can't do a writing session, an inspiring writing session, without talking about reading. Yeah, reading and writing, they go hand in hand. Reading is so important. Read to your children all the time. All right, that reading for love, reading for that passion for reading, that has a huge impact on writing. Children who read for pleasure are often your more creative writers, your children who want to write, because they've got the vocabulary to do it and the ideas to do it. We'll talk about that a bit more towards the end of the session. Okay, so as teachers, really make sure you expose your children to excellent literature all the time. Okay, and include poetry in that, non-fiction. Don't just do that in English lessons, do that across the curriculum. The more we expose them to it, the more we grow their vocabulary, the more we give them experiences, the more we build their imagination. Okay. I've mentioned Taught for Writing. I'm going to talk very briefly about it. We're a Taught for Writing school here. It's a fantastic way to develop children's writing. So if you haven't heard of that before, have a look at it. It's more of a whole school approach to the teaching of writing, but it's really good. The question for you to reflect on there: what text have you read to your children this year? What text have you exposed them to? Or poetry, any silly rhymes, any stories, short stories, long stories, and what impact has that had? That is so key to think about the kind of the diet, the reading diet your children are receiving, because that has a direct impact onto their writing. Okay. And that final question there: where could you build in more opportunities for this? Is it timetabled into your lessons? Think about, could you build it in at the start of a topic lesson? Let's do a bit of reading on non-fiction. Let's show you this. Let's show you that. The more we expose them to it, the more I put books in the children's hands, the better their writing will be as well. All right. Okay, so grammar. Gonna just touch on grammar a bit in this writing session. It says be aware of the grammar. So you'll all be aware of the curriculum expectations for grammar and what the children need to do in terms of progression as they move through school, progression in grammar skills and grammar knowledge. And the grammar is so important. It really is important. But I always think it's better for the purpose of writing. So I don't just want children knowing what a relative clause is, for example, or what parenthesis is, or a subordinate clause, or the subjunctive form is. These terms are very difficult, but I want to teach them for writing. So why has the writer done that? Why has the writer used parenthesis here? Why has the writer used a relative clause? Why has the writer used like a subordinate clause? How are we varying sentence structure? Why? So many children will pass the SPAG test at the end of Key Stage 2 in Year 6, but they don't meet the expected standard in writing. Okay, and that's not what we want. We don't want children to just know the terminology. For example, what is a modal verb, or pronouns? What is a pronoun? Identify the adverbs. A lot of children are strong at that, but they're not strong at applying it into their writing. And what we want is children who can do it in their writing. Okay, so when you're teaching, just be wary of grammar checklists. What impact can that have on young writers? Could it actually be preventing them from being creative because they feel so constrained by a list of grammar? The grammar we don't want to constrain the children. The grammar we want to enable the children to write, because we're building their subject knowledge. So if they become more secure in their grammar, they can use that, apply that to write to become more successful writers. What we don't want is make sure your text has included a modal verb, make sure it has included a subordinate clause, make sure it's done this. All of those are fine, but you want to know what impact is it having on the reader. So teaching in context is vital, as I've just spoken about, must have a purpose. And the other thing I think is really interesting is when we ask children to kind of edit their work and proofread, and we say, where do the full stops go? Where's the end of the paragraph? Read your work back to yourself. Do your children actually know what a sentence is? Do they know what different clause structures are? Do they know, for example, that a main clause has to contain a verb and has to contain a subject? So when they're going back to edit their work, do they actually know where the full stop is? Or have they missed out the full stops because they don't know what a sentence is? So have a look at that when you're marking books or giving feedback and you're assessing work. How can you build clause structure understanding for the children? Okay. So this is just kind of building on what I've just said. You want to try and find a good balance between the skills I want to teach them in this unit of work. And obviously you have your progression, you'll have your KPIs, your knowledge and skills progression documents for your school. So there's a balance between the skills they need to learn and I want to teach them, and building a fantastic purpose for the writing. Give them a great purpose, great skills, great teaching. That's how we're going to get good writing out of the children. All right. So just a quick one then about feedback and marking. You see I've gone crazy there, I put 3 exclamation marks. First thing to consider is your school policy. You must stick with your school policy, whatever that says about feedback and marking. We're more verbal feedback at my school at the moment. That's what we're looking at, rather than the written marking after the event. We still do bits and pieces of that, but actually we're really trying to build on that verbal feedback and conferencing sessions. So just think about, how do you give feedback at your school when you're assessing writing? Are you in a situation where you're marking the books at the end of a session and children aren't actually looking at your feedback you're giving them, and it's taking you a long time to give that feedback, but it's not having an impact? Or are you in a great position where you're giving live feedback and maybe some written feedback as well, and it's impacting the writing? Do children know their writing is being looked at? Is it valued? All right, so don't accept the second best. Be really explicit with your feedback. So when you're giving feedback on something, what is the success criteria? What do you want the children to have achieved? And that should reference back to what they've been taught. That makes my feedback so much easier if it's really clear what I'm teaching. So in this piece of writing, or we write a setting description, this in Year 5 or in Year 6 is how we write a great setting description. In Year 4, that will look slightly different. In Year 1, that might look slightly different. So have that progression of success criteria. This is what I want, that really top expectations for your children. And that will help you give really clear and concise feedback, and it's explicit, it's about the learning. All right, that's great. Remember as well, I think it's really important as teachers that we do address clear misconceptions that children have had, or key spelling errors. Don't let those slip. Those key spelling errors in primary school, we need to be on top of those and make sure the children are spelling those words correctly. So a classic is like where and were. A lot of children will spell were, W-H-E-R-E. Another one, there, and there. Do they understand those things like said, what, those people, those key spelling errors? Make sure you do address them with your class. Okay. You want children to be able to experience success in their writing. So that's really, even your less confident writers, how are you going to ensure that they find writing a pleasurable experience and they do get to experience success? And that will come down to your scaffolding that you put in place, your support you put in place. But you want those less confident writers to enjoy writing. So a lot of children who aren't as confident, because there's that block there, it doesn't become a pleasurable experience. So we're talking about today inspiring writing. Consider how much success are your less confident writers, how much success are they experiencing in the lessons? I keep putting it down, writing for a purpose. Okay, we won't have a reflection there, but just a couple of questions to think about after the session today. What does that mean for your context, for your children? And how are those things so far going to impact on your teaching of writing? So just something to think about at the end of the session. Okay, this is a great book. And I share this a lot on my sessions. This book is written by Alex Quigley, and it's called The Vocabulary Gap. He's also got a book out called The Reading Gap. These are great books to read, and they will change how you think about vocabulary and how you think about reading. So Alex Quigley has in this book talks about being in the word poor context at a young age. So from birth up to 5, how that can have far-reaching consequences for our children. So that's why your explicit teaching of vocabulary is so important and helping their understanding of the world, so their etymology and morphology. Okay. So Alex Quigley in his book talks about pupils needing to develop a vocabulary of about 50,000 words if they are statistically likely to be successful in education and beyond. All right. So that's the figure that research has shown, 50,000 words. So that's not just in school, that's as they move beyond school as well. So the average pupil will learn about 2,000 to 3,000 words a year in education. So therefore that shows us that our curriculum alone and our English lessons alone is not sufficient for most pupils, all right? So all of your interactions that you have with your children in the corridors, in the classroom, in the mornings when they go home, these are all great opportunities for vocabulary, okay? So it's about word deprivation. That can happen very quickly. So this is a quick statistic to show you. This statistic here, I share on a lot of my training sessions. It shows you around the vocabulary size for a piece of research for professional families, working class families, and welfare families. All right, this research is slightly old now, but the same is still true. So you can see here the recorded vocabulary size of a parent in a professional family compared to a welfare family there. So 2,076 compared to 974. But you can then see the same for the child. It's almost double for the professional family compared to the welfare family. But you've also got here, the bottom line is really interesting. So it's average different words per hour. And you can see the massive gap there in vocabulary size from more disadvantaged children to more professional families there. So that disadvantage, be really aware of your pupil premium children or disadvantaged children around their vocabulary. That's a massive stumbling block. It's something we have to address in schools and we have to teach really well. We need to build their vocabulary, all right, to help with their writing. So when we talk about children not being engaged in writing, it could be because they haven't got the vocabulary, the words to actually express themselves. So really value vocabulary, not just in English, in everything you do, every subject, every interaction, expose the children to all these words and make sure they try and embed those words, okay? Another thing that I wanted to share today is when we're talking about inspiring writing, we've gone through loads of practical examples of things you could use for that. But this is an amazing TED Talk by Rita Pearson. Every kid needs a champion. If you've got a spare 7 minutes, 8 minutes, that's all it is, watch the video, all right? Because I think a big part of inspiring writing as well is about relationships, the relationships you have with the children. And this will make you think about that. It makes you reflect on that. So obviously you've attended today because you're passionate about inspiring the young writers in your classroom. And this gets you to think about the relationship side of it. So we've spoken more about the English side of it, around different techniques and tools we can use and making us think about that. But this YouTube video, this TED Talk is it's incredible. I love it. It inspired me. So I want to pass it on to you as well. It makes you think about the relationships you have with the children in the class and how they look up to you, and how you really are that really important figure. And that's why teaching is, for me, it is the greatest job. So have a watch that video if you've got a bit of spare time. Okay. So here's some quick recommendations from me. So we've got some books here. So I spoke with Alice Quigley. Oh, thank you there. Yes, so Cheryl just added in the link there to that TED Talk. So make sure you take that, copy that. Really, honestly, such a powerful talk. So they've got close the vocabulary gap there, closing the reading gap. 2 excellent pieces of reading for you. Inspiring Writing in Primary Schools by Liz Chamberlain. If you haven't got that, again, it's more expensive than the Alice Quigley books, but it's well worth that, and that will stay with you during your teaching career. Amazing ideas in there, really practical resources you can take straight into the classroom, and it gets you to think about writing in a different way. So that's a great book. Andrew Jennings' Vocabulary Ninja. So when I'm talking about teaching vocabulary better in the classroom, that is great. And again, it's an easy read, and it's things you can transfer straight away into your practice. It's got resources in there, it's got word banks in there for different topics. So you're teaching, for example, the Egyptians, word bank, the Tudors, it's got a word bank. It teaches you the key words children should know for that unit. So when we talk about developing vocabulary, that is excellent. And that last chap on the side there, that is Pi Corbett. He's the one who I've spoken about with the Jumpstart books. He's taught for writing, but again, so much stuff around talk, so much research he shares. He does a lot of research around marking, feedback. So definitely have a little look at him as well, because he will change how you think about writing. Okay. All right, I can't click there. There we go. So that I'm going to stop the share. Okay, that kind of brings me to the end of the session. It would have been slightly longer if we had a few more participants, but hopefully Selena and Claire, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join the session. I know it's hard. I know teaching is very busy at the moment in schools, is incredibly busy, but hopefully you've got 1 or 2 things there you can take away into your classroom, and it gives you a chance to reflect on your practice. But yes, hopefully it's been helpful. I know it's 45 minutes nearly of me talking.
Thank you so much, Colin, for an absolutely brilliant session. Guys, do please check out that video. It's one of my favourites as well when it comes to training sessions. So thank you for your time, everybody, and thank you, Colin, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you.